Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to San Diego Gives University. Today, we'll be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion resources for nonprofits. My name is Mitch Price. I think I know each of you, and I am the program officer at the Leichtag Foundation, as well as Impact Cubed, which is a separate nonprofit 501c3 that the Leichtag Foundation started and houses many of our external initiatives. And Impact Cubed is the fiscal sponsor of San Diego Gives this year. I was going to do a little kind of community share, but maybe drop into the chat your name, organization, and how long you've been there. And we'll kind of get to know each other via the chat as we share this hour or so together this afternoon. Kind of just like a little bit of a meeting overview. Want to make sure people have a lay of the land, if you will. We'll talk a little bit about the history of the DEI Resource Library. And for those of you who don't know, DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So we'll review the history and how it came about. We'll look at, and I'll introduce you to the handful of DEI Resource Library partners, which are all amazing organizations here to serve the nonprofit community. And if you aren't involved, whether through membership or aware of their programs, I'll definitely encourage you to check that out or check them out because they definitely have, I've interacted with their staff and have participated in many of their trainings, webinars, etc., and definitely have gleaned a lot from them. And then we'll kind of like wrap up with a tour of the DEI Resource Library and answer any questions you have, even take suggestions. I would love to hear your thoughts on it, ways we can improve, as well as if you have resources to add. So jumping in just a little bit again about the background of the DEI Resource Library, it came out of an idea that was proposed during Fundraising Fridays, which is how I know many of you on this call. Fundraising Fridays is a weekly informal time where nonprofit professionals gather over Zoom and share fundraising, troubleshoot fundraising problems. Maybe you have an upcoming donor meeting, an event coming up. Maybe you're interested in, having a new CRM, a contact management system, and you want to just like brainstorm how people, integrated current systems or started from scratch. We also share funding opportunities and, like I said, upcoming events. So check out the Hive at Leichtag Commons and you're able to register, or you could just email me, mitchell@leichtag.org, and we'll get you added to the distribution list and have you come on Fridays. And you're welcome to come once a week, every other week, once a quarter, whatever works for your schedule. Again, we just want that to be a resource for you. So a couple of people on the call were talking about their work imbuing DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion into their workplaces. And so they began talking about ways that their organization had implemented policies and procedures, and if there was a formal way or a resource guide on how other organizations were doing that. We thought it was an amazing idea, and the Leichtag Foundation, which runs Fundraising Fridays with a handful of our partners, and Impact Cube joined the Alliance for Regional Solutions, ARS for short, and I'll introduce you and tell you a little bit about that organization in a moment. We joined the Alliance for Regional Solutions Racial Justice Committee, and we began creating this blueprint, a map for what the DEI Resource Library could look like, and then began collecting resources from nonprofits in the community. We shot out a handful of emails to close partners of the Leichtag Foundation, as well as asked people during Fundraising Fridays if they had resources to share. Upon getting, tons and tons of resources and doing a first draft of the DEI Resource Library, we reached out to a couple of other partners, which I'll introduce you to in one moment. and had them spread the news about the library as well. I forgot to mention my internet has been a little spotty, so if you aren't able to hear me, or if I cut out, I can definitely move rooms. Just like maybe someone drop into the chat if I am cutting in and out, and I'll continue to monitor that throughout this little meeting that we're having. So the DEI Resource Library partners, of course, we have Impact Cubed, which again is a partner, was started by the Leichtag Foundation. We also have Alliance for Regional Solutions, ARS. ARS is a recognized leader in building community through commitment and investment to create a thriving, resilient North County for all. Alliance members, I believe there are about 60 different North County nonprofit organizations and represented by 8 North County cities and all over the county as well. And they provide collaborative networking opportunities, forums for tackling emerging needs and exploring resources, and as well as offering program specific area workshops. So if you're not familiar with ARS, definitely check out their website and get involved in their work. North County Philanthropy Council, NCPC, they bring together nonprofit professionals, volunteers, donors, businesses together for really one purpose: to uplift our community. I mean, all these organizations are uplifting our community, of course, but NCPC is written into their mission. The organization believes that there is power in working together, and by connecting in various platforms, we can share knowledge, which can strengthen nonprofit leaders and the professionals that they serve. They offer as well education and development programs. They have an amazing mentorship program as well, and various resources for supporting our local nonprofit community. Fieldstone Leadership Network provides reciprocal learning opportunities, which build and deepen and sustain personal professional capabilities and relationships among nonprofit professionals. So they're better able to lead, collaborate, problem solve. They offer coaching programs, leadership development groups, learning opportunities, resources for nonprofits, among other things. So these are our partners in the work of the DEI Resource Library. And again, definitely encourage you to check those organizations out. If you have trouble finding their websites or anything like that, again, you can be in contact with me, Mitchell@leichtag.org. I just wanted to share a couple of reminders. First and foremost, thank you for the work that you do in the community. It's been an honor and pleasure to get to know you all, especially over the last 2 years during the pandemic, and some of you before that. But the ability to engage with one another over Zoom makes it so much easier to form this community that we have, and you truly are influencing the positive direction of the San Diego community, and just wanted to thank you. The DEI Resource Library is ever evolving and changing. So what you'll see today as we dive into the tour of the resource library is actually version 2.0. So as I was sharing the history of the DEI Resource Library, we started off with the library looking one way, and over the course of the last couple of weeks, or month or so, we changed kind of the layout, how stuff is organized, and again, are continually collecting resources. So if you have something to share that you want to add to the library that would be beneficial to anyone who accesses this resource, please submit to Mitchell@leichtag.org. I feel like I've said my email so many times, but again, just here to help you all. Want to make sure that you're aware of how to contact me. So the DEI Resource Library, I'm looking forward to, I'm going to switch screens for 1 minute, and then I'm going to pull up the DEI Resource Library and kind of give you an overview, explain some terms. Of course, there are many definitions of some of the categories that we listed out, but just to create an inclusive space where people feel that they understand, certain terms, want to kind of run through a handful of those. So I'm going to stop sharing this specific screen, and good to see everyone again. And then let's switch over to the actual DEI Resource Library. Okay, welcome to the DEI Resource Library. Can I get a little like thumbs up if you can see this? Okay, perfect. So the DEI Resource Library is housed on Impact Cube's website. It's just impactcubed.org. And then the library itself can be found at the top, kind of like guide, I don't know what to call this, taskbar. And you'll see that the DEI Resource Library is listed here. In case anyone was wondering, I also have my Netflix, FedLoan, Capital One, Chase tagged as well. So that's just my personal web browser. So the Community DEI Resource Library, I want to thank my colleague Paige Milgram Hills for designing this nice little header to the library. Kind of what I was explaining earlier about our partners, the formation of the DEI Resource Library can be found at the top in this little introductory paragraph. And then if you look right here, again, my email, which is hyperlinked here. If you have something that you would like to submit, you're welcome to do so at any time. The DEI Resource Library is organized by different categories. So at the top, as you scroll down, you can see these various categories and various resources which are cross-listed based off of if it applies to specific categories. If you scroll a little bit down, you can see we have even more categories. And then a little bit further down the page, we have additional resources, which I'll get to in 1 second. So you can access these resources, including a category that is called Access, by clicking on each of these individual tabs and then reading more in the individual by the individual articles. Some of these are videos, some of them lead you to additional websites, and then there's multiple pages, as you'll see on the bottom left-hand side on each category. I'm going to give, again, a quick kind of like overview of what each of these headings mean. And of course, if you have something that you would like to add during this time, you're welcome to do so. If you have a different definition or want to expand upon what I'm saying, please, because this DEI Resource Library wants to be a resource that you interact with, but also one that allows you to question, and we can maybe change if something doesn't look right. I am here to learn with you, and it's been a real privilege to do this work because I've learned so much, and I'm just excited to share it with you all. So again, just a quick overview of what these categories, a little definition, if you will. Access refers to the commitment for everyone in your organization to be included in all programs and activities. Biases in education refers to like the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, decisions in an unconscious manner in education. Critical race theory. Critical race theory is a cross-disciplinary intellectual and social movement of civil rights scholars and activists who seek to examine the intersection of race, society, and law in the United States and challenge mainstream American liberal approaches to racial justice. Diversity is the presence of differences that may include race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, nationality, disability, ability, etc. Equity. Equity is the act of ensuring that the processes and programs that you are offering or organizations are offering are impartial and fair and provide equal possible outcomes for every individual. Inclusion. Inclusion is the practice of ensuring that people feel a sense of belonging in the workplace. Oh, I just want to admit one person who's joining. So feel a sense of like belonging in the workplace. This means that like every employee feels comfortable and supported by the organization when it comes to being their authentic selves. Indigenous peoples. This is resources on peoples within like distinct social and cultural groups that share a collective tie to the lands and natural resources where they live, occupy, or from which they have been displaced. And these categories are organized as you see alphabetically. And again, you can click on various tabs to get way more resources related to the topics. A few more categories that we have. Intersections. Intersections is the overlapping or the intersecting. It's always fun when you use a word that you're trying to define in the actual definition. So it's like the overlapping or the intersection of identities and their experiences of, in this case, likely oppression and discrimination. Land work. Land work recognizes that land acknowledgements is but a first step in uplifting Indigenous populations. And this section holds examples of formal statements that organizations have used as the way of that they've recognized the land in which their offices or the work that they do takes place and respects Indigenous peoples as traditional stewards of the land. Public safety, there's like resources looking at like the dismantling of oppressive and racist systems. In this case, this would be the category of like policing. Race disparities, quick definition on that is kind of like the imbalances between the treatment of racial, like different racial groups. Racism is the prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or a people group on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group. Reparations. These resources, oops, sorry, I just opened another tab. Reparations looks at forms of compensation provided to those who have suffered wrongdoings or to their descendants. And restorative justice, this shows like systems of criminal justice, which focuses on the rehabilitation and reconciliation with victims in the community or at large. Now, some of these are related to DEI in general. They might not be applicable to your individual organization's work, but we still thought it would be important to organize in this way in order to be able to access various resources, especially as individuals are learning kind of the overlapping ways that racism has perpetuated in our society. Through understanding this, we hope that organizations are able to create safe places where people can become fully themselves, be representative, pull various identities into their office spaces. Another helpful section in the DEI resource library is found at the bottom. So you'll scroll from the top past the categorized resources to the bottom. Here you'll find recruiting venues, policies, and procedures. So say you're trying to promote a job opportunity within your organization, and instead of posting just on maybe LinkedIn or Nonprofit Works, we provide a handful of other organizations or membership groups that you could post those jobs to get the word out to populations that you may not interact with and or who might not traditionally use whatever job posting site that you're using. We have procedures and policies, whether that's related to anti-bullying, anti-harassment, DEI, and vendor policies. And a lot of organizations have submitted their own policies. You'll see that the Leashtag Foundation, Jewish Family Service, Moisture House, Just in Time Foster Youth, NCPC, North County Philanthropy Council have submitted their resources. And you just click on this and a whole new page will pop up. So you don't have to keep coming back to the DEI resource library. You're welcome to access the page and open multiple tabs, go between and use those for your benefit. We also have a growing list of consultants, which are recommendations made not only from the Leichtag Foundation, but submitted from organizations who have used these consultants in their DEI work. And we're happy to add, if anyone on here, if their organization or you yourself are involved in this work, we'd love to add your profile as a recommendation as well. We also have an upcoming section. This is to be determined. I don't know if that's the right word, but it'll be added as events come up, as well as past event recordings. We're working to revamp this section currently and include a calendar of events for you all, which would be related to DEI work specifically. So that is kind of just a general overview of the DEI resource library. I'm going to stop sharing this specific screen, though we definitely can come back to it and see if anyone has any questions that I'm happy to answer or find an answer and get back to you. So again, want this time to be interactive. I know many of you are off screen, that's totally fine, but want to check out to see if anyone has any questions. You can drop in the chat, you can unmute yourself, happy to go any direction. Any takers out there? I'll also drop into the chat a link to the DEI resource library. So you're welcome to check it out yourself. And again, please, if your organization has any resources that they would like to share, you're welcome to submit to me at mitchell@leichtag.org, which I just dropped in the chat as well. I will stick around for anyone who is interested. I am not seeing any questions coming in, but I'm happy to just stay on until folks have left. But again, this is your time to ask questions, provide suggestions maybe, and go from there. But if you don't have anything, that's totally fine as well. And we look forward to seeing you at the next San Diego Gives University workshop. We have office hours this week on Thursday and a handful of other opportunities. So check your mail as well as look on the San Diego Gives website for upcoming trainings and webinars. Great being with you all. But again, I'll stick around, see if anyone has any other questions for me. Thanks, Colleen. Thanks, Mem. Great seeing you all. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, so I think I'll end the recording. But again, I'm here as a resource to you all. Thank you so much for joining and have a great rest of your day.